Imagine fighting a man whose skin could not be pierced by spears. A man who walked through arrows like rain. A warrior so terrifying, entire armies ran at the sight of him. But here's the terrifying part. They say he could only be killed through his shadow. And when his enemies finally discovered the secret, everything changed. This is the legendary story of Luanda Magere, the warrior who could not die. Before we begin, close your eyes. Picture a land of red earth and golden grass stretching to the horizon. Lake Victoria shimmering in the distance. The year is somewhere around 1720 in the heart of what is now Kenya. The Luo people of Kano are proud, fierce, and free. But to the east, their ancient enemies, the Nandi, circle like shadows at the edge of firelight. This is the world that Luanda Magere was born into. And it would never be the same again. On a stormy night in the Sido clan of Kano, Luanda Magere entered the world. His mother did not survive the birth. The elders said the child took something from her to give to himself, and what he took was her very life force, forged into stone beneath his skin. His father, a warrior of great repute, raised him with a spear in one hand and grief in the other. When Luanda was barely a teenager, his father too fell in battle against the Nandi. The boy who had lost everything became the man no one could destroy. As Luanda grew into manhood, strange things were noticed. Spears thrown at him in training snapped on contact with his skin. Arrows bounced away like twigs. Warriors who wrestled him came away with bruised knuckles, as if they had punched a boulder. The elders consulted the spirits and were told, "This man's skin is made of living rock. His body is a fortress built by the ancestors. The Nandi could sharpen their blades for 1,000 years, they would never cut him." Or so it seemed. The Luo and Nandi clashed often, raids at dawn, battles at dusk. But Luanda Magere had a peculiar way of war. He would sit at home, smoking his pipe, watching the smoke curl into the sky while the drumbeats of battle reached his ears. He would wait, and when the Luo began to falter, when the Nandi's screams of triumph cut through the air, only then would Luanda set down his pipe, take up his spear and shield, and walk calmly onto the battlefield. What followed was never a battle. It was a harvest. When Luanda entered battle, the ground shook. Not from an earthquake. From the running, the Nandi running away. He walked through their spears like a man walks through tall grass. He caught arrows from the air and snapped them between his fingers. Warriors who dared face him were flung aside like dried leaves. The Nandi lost hundreds of men. Luanda walked home without a scratch. Night after night, battle after battle, the Luo people began to say, perhaps Luanda Magere is not a man at all. Perhaps he is something the ancestors sent, something that cannot die. The Nandi elders gathered in secret, their faces grim in the firelight. Their best warriors had fallen. Their proudest fighters had run screaming from a single man. They could not defeat Luanda on the battlefield. So they decided they would not fight him at all. They would find something far more dangerous than a spear. They chose their most beautiful daughter. Young, clever, patient as a river. They dressed her in fine cloth and sent her to the Luo as a peace offering, a bride for Luanda Magere. A spy sent into the heart of the enemy wearing a smile. The Nandi girl arrived in Kano like a gift wrapped in beauty. Luanda accepted her as his second wife, as was the custom. The Luo celebrated. A marriage meant peace, they thought. But the Nandi bride watched everything. She watched how Luanda ate, how he slept, how he trained. She watched for weeks, then months, learning the rhythms of the stone warrior's life. She found nothing. No wound. No weakness. No way in. And then, Luanda fell ill. His first wife was away. It was the Nandi bride who came to tend to him. "Cut my shadow," Luanda told her, an old Luo remedy, a way of applying medicine through the dark shape a body casts upon the earth. She hesitated, then she pressed the knife to the ground where his shadow lay. And the shadow bled. Dark red, warm blood seeping from the earth where shadow met soil. The girl's hand did not shake. But inside her chest, her heart hammered with something between terror and triumph. She had found it. The one door left open in an otherwise unbreakable man. That night, while Luanda slept, the Nandi bride slipped out into the darkness. She ran. Through the bush, through the cold, through the sleeping land of Kano, back to her people. She arrived breathless, trembling, alive with terrible news. The Nandi elders listened in silence. When she finished speaking, the silence broke into war cries. They had him. After years of shame, of hiding, of sending their sons home in pieces, they finally had the stone warrior's secret. His shadow was flesh. His shadow could bleed. And shadows are longest at dawn. They came at midnight, as the Nandi always did, under cover of dark, silent as the dead. The Luo fought with ferocity born of pride and desperation. And Luanda rose like a storm. He swept through the Nandi ranks, unstoppable, terrifying, impossible. Spears snapped on his chest. His own spear sang through the air and warriors fell. The Nandi began to retreat. They were losing again. One more defeat. One more humiliation. And then, one warrior, small and clever, climbed a hill at the edge of the battlefield. He looked not at Luanda's chest. He looked down, at the ground, at the shadow stretching long in the first grey light of dawn. The Nandi warrior stood on the hill. Below him, Luanda Magere moved through his enemies like fire through dry grass. The warrior raised his spear. He did not aim at the man of stone. He aimed at the long dark shape that stretched ahead of Luanda across the red earth. He threw. The spear struck the shadow, and something the world had never seen happened. The shadow screamed. Luanda Magere, the man who could not be cut, the warrior whose skin had shattered 1,000 blades, staggered. His knees buckled. He looked down at his shadow and saw the spear buried in the ground where his darkness lay. And he understood. She had told them. Luanda Magere fell. The mightiest warrior the Luo had ever known collapsed to the red earth of Kano. And as his body met the ground, as his blood and his breath left him, something extraordinary happened. His body hardened. Skin to stone, muscle to rock, the man of flesh became what his name had always promised. A great wind rose across Kano and Nandi country both. And a drought, 2 years without rain, followed in the wake of his passing, as though the land itself was mourning. The Luo people wept, not just for a warrior, for something that could never be replaced. Near Awasi, in what was once Nyando district of Kenya, there is a stone. Just a stone, by some accounts. But the Luo know better. Luanda Magere appeared to the elders in their dreams and told them where he had fallen. They found the stone and they understood. Warriors once sharpened their blades on it before battle. Pregnant women are forbidden to approach it. People come from across the country to pray there, to ask for strength, for protection, for courage. The stone does not speak, but it remembers. Luanda Magere, the fierce rock, the one on which a people built their pride, is still there. Waiting, watching, as he always did. And if you are ever in Kano at the first light of dawn, look at your shadow. Make sure it is not longer than it should be.